Dr. Tharoor, 2025 only seems to have confirmed that the world is multipolar, and as a result also seems far more embattled than ever before. There's no end to the war between Russia and Ukraine as of now. The Middle East remained tense through the year. We saw that Iran-Israel conflict play out. And it appears that maintaining global peace is becoming more and more difficult. How does one manage conflicts? And who's, for example, is going to rein in a Vladimir Putin? Who's going to rein in a Netanyahu, these strongmen leaders? Even the United Nations, of which you were once a distinguished member several years ago, seems completely powerless.
Well, rather, the United Nations can really only be effective when member states who make it up, don't forget it's an organization of member states, when they agree. And when they agree, the UN works miracles, which is why it is such an impressive collection of Nobel Peace Prizes in its cabinet. It's when the member states, the powerful ones in particular, the top 5 in the world, the so-called permanent members of the Security Council, when they are divided, the UN can't be expected to deliver results in the peace and security domain. It continues to be a hugely important player in all sorts of socio-economic issues, setting the agenda on everything from environment to climate change, human rights, and so on. But on peace and security, I think we'll have to see the UN taking a back seat.
But Dr. Tharoor, that's the question. Who's going to rein in? I repeat, the Netanyahus of the world, the Putins of the world, thousands of lives lost this year in Gaza. Who's going to rein in Vladimir Putin? Thousands of lives lost in the Russia-Ukraine war. That's the question I raise.
Look, I think there's no doubt that the tectonic plates in the world are shifting, and therefore we are going to see a period of turbulence. We used to describing the world like a portrait gallery where you go from one to the other and you understand and describe each portrait. Instead, it's more like a wall mosaic. Jagged edges poking everywhere, and you're quite right, no one able to pull them all together into a coherent pattern. So let me just say that, who's going to rein in anybody isn't the right question. The question is, how do we manage those who can't be reined in? The Europeans and the West are trying to bring about a peace in Ukraine, but there is a big gap between America, which I think wants some compromises on the part of Ukraine, and the Europeans who are urging the Ukrainians not to compromise. And Russia, of course, says, look, we're winning the war anyway. If we stick to it long enough, why should we agree on a compromise that involves anything giving up on our part? And that process is not looking very promising. Conversely, though Gaza, you're right, witnessed some horrendous atrocities, a sort of peace is reigning right now in the region. And therefore, perhaps it won't need reining in if Mr. Trump can get those Muslim troops on the ground in that region and bring about, uphold some sort of peace and do some rebuilding. You might actually see some good news happening. I know many people would scoff in disbelief because there's no sign of that, but it could still happen. And we actually have an agreed peace formula that people are trying to implement. As far as our own neighborhood is concerned, yes, the Chinese are giving us trouble, but the Chinese don't really want to go to war. The Pakistanis are a bit more of a problem, not because they will leap into a war, that also doesn't suit them, but because they could feel they can use terrorism with impunity, knowing that India is aware that the sort of odds have changed in a military conflict. And therefore, we have to be very much on our guard against new terrorist attacks from Pakistan. As far as the rest of the neighborhood is concerned, it's an ongoing daily management challenge. It's Bangladesh, it's Pakistan, it's Sri Lanka, it's Nepal, it's the Maldives. We've got Bhutan is the only completely peaceful and tranquil place in our immediate periphery. But I think we can actually, with Sri Lanka, we've transformed the relationship into one of great, bonhomie, and we've helped Sri Lanka through its huge troubles. Maldives, again, we're changing the narrative there. So I don't think it's all unrelieved gloom. Sorry, Raj.
No, you're saying it's not gloom only, but I want to ask you the big question. Has Indian foreign policy under Prime Minister Modi got it right or wrong in this unsettled world? Do we really have this voice on the global high table that we were hoping for? Have we been much too reactive rather than proactive? Do we really have a moral voice left to take a strong enough stand, let's say, on what happened in Gaza? As Indian foreign policy in that sense, Dr. Tharoor, in the neighborhood, across the world, found itself, has it got it right or wrong?
Look, I think one thing that's very clear is this entire turbulence in 2025 has underscored the importance of the strategic autonomy that we set so much store by. We've tried to come across as a voice of the global south while effectively balancing relations with Washington, Moscow, and Beijing without having a direct degree of enmity or a great degree of a partnership with any of them. We are managing all these three relationships. There's an enormous amount of instability in the global economy where we have had a relatively stable fiscal trajectory, though, of course, our rupee has gone down so badly. So that will put some inflationary pressure on us from energy imports, which are, of course, priced in foreign currency. But we are otherwise, I think, well poised to take advantage of some of these currents. Multi-alignment, the phrase that I came up with 20 years ago, and at that point it was rejected by the establishment and sank without trace, is now the term of art to describe what we're doing. The world is more and more like the World Wide Web, an internet networked world, and we are trying to function around several networks without being stuck in only one particular pattern, and that's multi-alignment, and it's going reasonably well, I believe.
But do we have do we really have a voice on the global high table? That's my direct question to you.
We haven't, I think, tried enough to give ourselves the opportunity to be the kind of sort of punching above our weight global player that many of us had hoped that India would be. I think we're not there yet, and it's partially, as you rightly implied, because we are not interested or we are a bit reticent. We haven't had the nerve or the courage to take too many steps forward, and therefore we haven't become the big voice on the global high table yet. But we can be, and the global south might be the platform that enables us to be, but also we, with our technological strengths, our ability to be an influential voice on everything from cyberspace to outer space, our capacity to reach out to help developing countries in our neighborhood and beyond as a well-meaning donor, very different from the way the Chinese build up debts everywhere. We've been very, very considerate. I think we've got all the elements to be a significant player. And I will say to you, Rajdeep, that at the moment, we have to do, you're a cricket fan, we have to play a few more defensive strokes at this stage of the innings before we can start launching into those expansive fours and sixes that your question implies we can do on the world stage. Arguably, we can, but at the moment, there's still too many bouncers coming our way that we need to weave out of the way of.
But you're also a cricket fan, so let me throw you a googly. Is part of the problem that there is no domestic consensus when it comes to foreign policy? That's also broken down. You yourself have faced a blowback from your own party every time you said even a word of praise for the Narendra Modi government's policies, for example, on Operation Sindoor. Is that something that should worry you or us, that even foreign policy is now tied into a very polarized environment domestically, making any government's task perhaps that much more difficult?
Yeah, I mean, I said many, many years ago, there's no such thing as a BJP foreign policy or a Congress foreign policy. There's only Indian foreign policy and Indian national interests. And that's what I will always speak for. And to my mind, that really is something which most countries adhere to. America has this doctrine of our political differences stop at the water's edge. And we, I think, very much need that because we are far more beleaguered at the water's edge than America is. And I think we really do need to stay together, stay behind the flag and stand up. So when some perhaps people in our politics rejoice at what they see as setbacks for Mr. Modi, I tend to see setbacks for India. And therefore, I bristle and stand up for my country. And if that means standing up for my government, that's what the voters or the public of this country have given us, I'll have to do that. But to my mind, foreign policy is an area where in the past there have been moments of bipartisan consensus. Everyone talks about Vajpayee Saab leading the delegation to the UN meeting in Geneva on Kashmir, with the government's MOS, Foreign Affairs, Salman Khurshid, going as the leader of the opposition's deputy. And that sort of thing has also happened. Indira Gandhi sent J.P. Narayan and other critics around the world on a tour of capitals to sensitize them on what was happening in East Pakistan in the lead up to what became the Bangladesh war. We need to recapture that spirit because, as Nehruji famously said, who lives if India dies? I mean, there is no question in my mind that India comes first for all of us.
Okay, interesting. My final question, therefore, Dr. Tharoor, what is that moment globally that stands out for you in 2025, a moment that either fills you with hope or despair? And what do you believe we should expect in 2026? A little bit more stability, or are we simply in an unsettled age?
I'm not going to give you a black and white answer, Rajdeep. I would say the moment that stands out for me very clearly was Operation Sindoor and the multi-party delegations that followed, because of my own personal involvement in that process and the conversations I was able and privileged to have with world leaders in the aftermath of that. So for me, that was the biggest event of the year, and it fills me with both hope and concern. Hope because of the extremely good quality of feedback we got from interlocutors in every country we went to, and the amazingly positive level of interest in a close relationship with India. But also a worry because despite all of that, we had the Trump tariffs following a few weeks after my visit to Washington. We had the ascent of Pakistan that you and I talked about earlier in the program.
Right.
And we've seen some of the difficulties surrounding our relationship with China as well. And so with all of this, there are reasons for concern. Foreign policy is not for the complacent, and it's certainly not for those who are unable to see nuances. We have to identify the nuances, explore them, and work through them. And therefore, for me, the year begins with hope that we can manage all of this, that we have a lot to contribute in terms of our capacity to involve ourselves as leaders of the global South in navigating a path. For example, if there is a path in peace in Ukraine, I see India playing a role very much in bringing that to permanence. I think, for example, our fiscal prudence will help strengthen our economy. Our AI hubs and our technological work will make us an important player on the global technology transformations, et cetera, et cetera. So there is a lot that I'm hopeful about, and I'd like to see India march ahead with confidence in that context.
You know, there's a word, Ummeed pe duniya kayam hai, Dr. Tharoor, and maybe that's the mantra going ahead into 2026. But for giving us in your inimitable fashion an overview of the world in 2025, appreciate you joining us on this year-end Global Roundtable. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rajiv. Happy New Year to you. Thanks.